hesitate to ask you about the disciplinary issue, but obviously Gailey's suspension. How disappointed are you to be without him this week?
Yeah, again, disappointed, and I'll say it again. We had a fair trial. And I've said this before. The rules are the rules. I think if people have seen the vision, it's a hard one to cop. It really is. But it's not. Paul Cullen on the match review is putting him in a basket that he's told to do. He's just implementing the rules. So if we don't like those rules, we need to, maybe look at the rules. The whole grading of it, grade B, and I guess reckless and potential to cause injury to the referee. Obviously, they're the bits we challenged because we wholly disagreed that there were any potential to cause injury. It was careless. It was careless that he actually did touch the referee, and we understand that that's the law. You can't do it. The fact he's got some previous led to him getting games. We successfully argued that it's careless and it's a grade A. There's no real aggression from Luke. It wasn't a melee really. It was two teams competing extremely hard to stop a try-scoring incident. He got shoved in the back, and his instinct brought him back to see who'd done that. I don't think there were a hell of a lot in it. It's it's a shame that we're rubbing good players out of the game for such minor indiscretions at the moment, given everything else that we're facing in the game, challenges-wise. Yet it's really frustrating. However, rules are rules. And say we had a fair hearing, we managed to get it downgraded, and the previous, unfortunately, got us a game.
What about the changes that you've been pondering for Cass this week?
I think it's one of them weeks, James, like most teams. We see who's available through all different circumstances, and we pick the best 17 that we've got out there. Not looking at sort of form changes. I'm going to say, I thought last week were hard to take. We found it hard to take. And I am going to say, look, there's a lot of negativity around the game at the moment, around lots of factors, some of it very understandable. We were disappointed that Charnley's try were given. Just a clear-cut no try. Absolutely clear-cut no try. And disappointment of losing the game, and probably looking at ourselves more than the calls. We would look at ourselves in the way we managed parts of it and some of the errors that we came up with. But it was a good game. It was a really exhilarating game to watch. And I think sometimes we need to start looking at some of the positives in the game. That, hey, look, the two teams having a really 3-day and 4-day rest. Two teams, even though there was some fatigue, there was some errors in the game. I thought both teams tried magnificently hard, and there was some great rugby played on the night as well. So we were disappointed, but at the same time, we pull some positives out of it and dust ourselves off for a local derby this week. Cass, who have had some difficulties with the lineup. We've had to probably go back to Wembley to look at when they've had a stronger team out as what they're going to put out tomorrow, and they played really well in that game. I know they didn't get the win, but I thought they played a really good game of rugby on that day. And again, facing a team that's had some issues like ourselves, getting teams on the park and losing people through a variety of reasons. But we'll expect a strong Cass team for what is always a keenly fought local derby.
Yeah, as you say, derbies always bring their own motivations, but could an extra motivation for them be the last time you met?
Yeah, well, I think they'll have a stronger team on the park than that night. We played really well. They've probably not had a lot of game time since then. If I'm right, probably 3 games. We're only one of them. You would look and say that's a side that resembles a team of strength with Castleford, but we're expecting a better version. We're expecting a better version of Castleford tomorrow night than what we saw probably against Huddersfield in the week, and what we saw last time out against us. They've got some important players back. Oliver Holmes is back in the squad, who's had a real good year and had a real talismanic presence for him, really. And as I say, they may well be a little bit underdone, but we would look at the Wembley game and say they've not had a lot of game time into that game, and I thought they performed really well then.
And just finally for me, Rich, obviously we now know about the World Cup being postponed. What are your initial thoughts regarding that? And could there be a knock-on regarding the Super League maybe being extended?
I don't know. I mean, I think one thing to consider is even if they do extend the Super League season, it may well not stop the problems that we're having. You know, COVID's still here. We're still getting people going down with it. Everybody is still tracking and tracing. So extending the season by a month, you could still be left in the same spot at the end of that. So whether they just stick with the schedule and say, right, let's plough through it and get it done, and we'll stick to the script this year, and touch wood, fingers crossed, we'll have a better running for it next year. I don't know. You know, there'll be people with a far better idea deciding that than me. Disappointed it's not going ahead, of course. But at the same time, I do have an element of understanding about it too.
Just as a bit of a continuation on that World Cup thing, with it now being in autumn 2022, does that change how you approach next season, be that in terms of pre-season, squad size, even recruitment? Are you having to sort of think fluidly now we know it's going to be next year?
Well, we think we'd have some players involved, you know, with nations other than England as well. From a selfish point of view, Aaron, it will give us a better rest and a better pre-season into next year. Obviously, we do feel, and I've said this a number of times, we do feel that, you know, we weren't quite able to dig the well deep enough this pre-season because of a variety of factors that I think we've covered off enough. And a World Cup will probably give you a shorter pre-season with, you know, international players that are generally some of your most important players. So from our selfish point of view, it'll enable us to prep better. I think squad size, you made a really valid point there. Given if COVID is still around and we're still under testing procedures, your ability to lose people at short notice does put a strain on your squad. And coupled with injuries this year, you know, we have run off 21, 22 players most of the year. That impacts your training. You know, it really has affected what we can do and how we've had to train this year. So, yeah, we would like to run with a slightly bigger squad. We think the way we've been able to manage our cap and sign players and retain players will give us scope to run with a slightly bigger squad. But also, again, Aaron, putting a focus on opening up some more spots for kids to come in, you know, which don't impact your salary cap as much. You know, the global forces, mate, on the market are such that it makes it tough to get, you know, to the Australian market is a tough one at the moment, and movement in the domestic comp is difficult. Players have got good players signed up for a long time. There's some talk of 14 teams next year that's going to put even more strain on it. So again, our policy that we will adopt internally is, again, quality players come in like Blake and Aiden and James Bentley. But again, to try and, I guess, re-emphasise, accentuate our youth policy as such.
Just one for me, just sort of following on really. Now we know the World Cup is going to be next year, and it's likely to be at least a couple of weeks earlier, and there's the chance of being 14 teams next year. Just how important is it that Super League and the RFL get the call over next season right to prevent what's happened this year, almost like a survival of the fittest, really?
Yeah, we understand the problems that's given us this situation, Gaz, and while there may be some criticism, it's not easy to find answers sometimes. You know, there's a need for clubs to, you know, clubs have done it tough, and there's a need for clubs to play in front of fans. And obviously, we're hoping and praying we can get the crowds back up and running. The impact that COVID's had on the game, we all know the problems. The solutions, unfortunately, are never quite that straightforward, and the solutions aren't going to fit everyone all the time. I guess what we're hoping next year is that the landscape, the picture is a little bit clearer in terms of his ability to play week in, week out. Might be, might not be. I think that's still unknown to us. And we can get a fairly settled fixture list. I think what we do understand and know is that playing teams 4 games in 14 days and 3 games in 7 days is no good for anyone, really. It's no good for the players, mate, going into a World Cup, that's for sure. No. So let's hope we can get some parity as well as clarity, I guess, in the fixture list. You know, we can get a full calendar, a full competition in somehow, and that maybe there's a little bit of leeway for any problems that we encounter within there, and that we're not flogging our best players to death, because that is that is obviously
Yeah.
a factor, mate. Something that we need to consider.
Just on Austin, is he on the quota for next year? I know he played for Great Britain, but he's a quota player, isn't he?
He is, mate. Yeah.
Yeah. Does that presumably has an implication for some of your current or one of your current overseas players? I think you've got 3 that are out of contract at the end of the situation.
We've 2 spots left, and with 3 guys in Conrad, Rees, and King. They're all out of contract. Look, we've spoken to every player, and we've spoken to their agents, and all those guys know exactly where it's at. And it's going to be a really tough decision because obviously we would love to keep all the guys on the books, but we've got to balance that off. Not only with salary cap, Pete, and I don't just want to use salary cap as an excuse, but we've got to balance that off. But again, I sort of already explained the rationale behind signing Blake. We just feel versatility and getting strength in depth in the spine position is something what's hurt us and had a bit of an impact this year. So we think we've got good enough players all around to to really take us forward next year as a team. But unfortunately, obviously 3 doesn't go into 2. So, the guys know where it's at. We've spoken to them all individually and personally, and they understand, where we sit at this point in time.